should. An ordinary day at school turns into a moment this kindergartner will never forget.
Boys and girls, her mommy's home. Clap for her.
Army National Guardsman Casey Thornton surprising her daughter, June. She had been on a deployment for a year. Imagine that.
Next to the bad, the concrete jungle just got a little more wild. Police in New York flooded with calls over a tiger roaming around the streets, but it was a raccoon.
Really? New York, come on.
I couldn't even read
You've
that.
got to be kidding me.
Oh, my God.
And finally, the ugly. Can we go back to that shot at the end? A high school girls basketball game turns into a brawl when parents attack the referee over a foul call. As the official backs away, he trips when another adult, reportedly a coach, starts punching him. Police are investigating. Can we go back to the shot?
Watch out for the scary tigers running around New York.
There we go.
All right, have a good day, everyone.
The one on the right's a tiger. Fox and Friends starts now. Bye, everybody.
President Trump says a military strike against Syria may come soon.
We're looking very, very seriously, very closely at that whole situation.
American credibility is on the line right now.
Fired FBI Director James Comey slamming our commander-in-chief, attacking President Trump's integrity and appearance, saying, quote, "This president is unethical."
President Trump's choice to lead the State Department, Mike Pompeo, in the hot seat.
My task as the chief diplomat to rally the world to the causes that benefit America.
There are new reports that MS-13 members are posing as minors traveling with the migrant caravan.
Insanity from the left wing on television.
We have to rely on the sanity of Kim Jong-un and Putin over the president of the United States. That's where we're at.
Every day, all you have to do is turn on the news. Every time you see me hit, you know that I'm draining the swamp.
Gonna be a good time. It's a small town. Throw down. It's time to tall boy up. Let them tailgates down.
Whose idea was the purple skyline? That was a great idea. I love it.
Mother Nature, I think, is in charge of that.
His name is God.
Okay, then I've heard of him.
Hey, welcome aboard, folks. It is Fox and Friends for this Friday, the 13th, the 13th day of April.
So,
you're not afraid of that, are you?
Everyone's
I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Right. Hey, by the way,
Phobia.
There's a big buzz about Ainsley's book that's coming out, but in the meantime, we're stuck with Comey's book to analyze until it's finally dropped.
They're not coming out on the same day.
Steve and I actually don't get an advance copy. More on that later as the show progresses. But we did get some excerpts from James Comey's book, and of course, there's going to be a big interview on Sunday.
Yeah, we haven't seen it, but it has been excerpted in a number of major publications. It's called A Higher Loyalty. Remember, that guy right there was fired back in May, and the Democrats wanted him fired first, and then Republicans did. It's interesting. In the book, he talks about how when he, after Donald Trump won, he went into the Oval Office and said to then President Barack Obama, "I dread the next 4 years." And then he did meet the president-elect over at Trump Tower, and he briefed him on, among other things, the dossier. And Trump had some questions about some of the skeevy things and the details. And Comey told him something that President Trump has said repeatedly, and Comey confirms. The former FBI director at that point did say to the president, "We are not investigating you."
Well, it's a tell-all book. It's clear he has disdain for the current administration or the president. He compares him to a mob boss. He says this president is unethical and untethered to truth and institutional values. His leadership is transactional, ego-driven, and about personal loyalty. I had flashbacks to my earlier career as a prosecutor against the mob, the silent circle of assent, the boss in complete control, the loyalty oaths, the U.S. versus them worldview, the lying about all things, large and small, in service to some code of loyalty that put the organization above morality and above the truth.
Right. So that's those are some of the things that he said. The mob boss. And also President Trump. President Trump is also different than every other politician. I think everyone agrees with that. Than he probably has ever been around. The fascinating trip he takes us through this election, one of which was put upon him by Hillary Clinton's ill-conceived idea to have a private server, how she reacted, how Loretta Lynch continued to fall short in his eyes, how he was able to try to overcome that. But what struck me most is the fact that he was counting on President Hillary Clinton, not President Donald Trump. And everything he was doing was to set up her presidency without, my words, that cloud of, is she going to be investigated, illegitimate, and is she going to be clouded with investigation? That was the whole reason he came out. He essentially apologized to Hillary Clinton for all the bad things Hillary Clinton did that made him do what he did.
I heard that you were angry at me, and I am so sorry. Sorry I didn't do a better job explaining to you and to your supporters why I made my decisions.
What's crazy about it, though, is essentially he is revealing that he was deciding whether or not to reopen this and make it public based on polls. How crazy is that? He said he looked at the polls, she was going to be president, he wanted to make sure that if people found out that there was a search warrant, folks didn't think that the FBI was hiding stuff. Also,
so he wouldn't have done it if he had known that President Trump would have won?
He was looking at the polls, and that's just, I guess, how Washington works. But the central question about that we are at today is regarding the Russia collusion thing. And at that meeting and before, did the president ask James Comey to do something illegal? And he answers it himself. He says, I have one perspective on the behavior I saw, which, while disturbing and violating basic norms of ethical leadership, may fall short of being illegal. So answering the question, we presume that means, was there obstruction of justice? Did it rise to that level? Doesn't look like Mr. Comey thinks so.
Might not have liked it, might have been unethical in his opinion, but wasn't illegal. Didn't obstruct justice.
But even the small things make you wonder about the big things, little things. When he said, when I got fired, the first person to call me was General Kelly. He was so upset he was going to quit too. I said, General, the president needs good people like you around him. General Kelly's account was totally different. He said, I called up, basically said, sorry, best of luck in the future. So Loretta Lynch came out last week, or this week we see it, and had to go out and get on the record that, you know, I never said to the whole thing about don't call it an investigation, call it a matter. I never said to James Comey never objected when I brought up the whole investigation and had to have a public tone for it. When Comey said I did stand up, I was befuddled when she said don't call it an investigation, call it a matter. And after he saw the tarmac meeting, he quickly scrambled and called that press conference where he says he does regret using some verbiage, but for the most part, nobody that he was around could see any reason to go through with an investigation or an indictment on Hillary Clinton.
Well, in the book regarding the tarmac meeting, he says that the idea that the meeting between William Jefferson Clinton and Loretta Lynch, the idea that that conversation would influence the probe, he says is ridiculous.
Well,
that's curious.
You know, Republicans have hated him at one point when he didn't indict Hillary Clinton 2 summers ago. And then a few days before the election, Democrats hated him because he reopened the investigation into Hillary and then closed it. And many Democrats felt like he's the reason, instead of the fact that Hillary did something illegal or wasn't supposed to hide those emails, they blamed him for her losing the election. So he's been loved and hated by both sides. Right now, the media is loving him because this book is all about how much he hates the president. So they're going to be falling all over this book on Tuesday. It'll start Sunday with George's interview. But don't forget, the media hated him at one point, too. Listen.
Comey is getting horrible advice. He is interfering in this election. I don't understand what the guy's doing.
It is conceivable that this was just a coincidence, but coming on top of the Director Comey's, very unusual and controversial release last week, it just makes the FBI look like a wing of the Republican Party.
Whether or not Comey's intervention has affected the presidential race, it's clear that his disclosure and the spate of now competing, one might even say warring FBI leaks that have followed, have raised serious questions about the FBI's integrity and impartiality.
I just tell you, the integrity of Comey as well as the FBI is in question. It makes you wonder.
It's amazing, and people are going to be doing backflips all week because you can't interview James Comey and just go all right or all left, because he basically puts himself above both parties and always doing the right thing. And in the end, Barack Obama praises him for always doing the right thing. The other thing that is absolutely bizarre, he talks about being bullied as a kid. He also talks about the physical appearance of the president being so much taller than him, his hands being smaller than his. The president evidently goes to a tanning bed. He also talked about his hair, how long it takes to do. Really? The FBI director going into the physical attributes of the president of the United States. Besides that, he doesn't get trivial.
Yeah. The White House reaction, they put up a website. It's called Lion Comey, and essentially what they say is, are you going to believe this book? After all, we know him to be a leaker and a liar.
The thing is, though, he still doesn't get it. He doesn't get why the American people elected this president. Yes, he's unconventional. No, he doesn't have political experience. He was learning a lot as he was coming along. They liked him because of the wall. They liked him because he was a businessman. They liked him for his tough stance on immigration and for draining D.C.
All right, real quick on Syria. It's not a strike yet, but it looks like it is coming. Get ready, Russia was the original tweet the president put out. They will be coming, meaning missiles, nice, new, and smart. Then he came back and tweeted out, never said that when an attack on Syria would take place. Could happen very soon. A series of meetings. Mattis sending weapons inspectors in to make sure about the level of the chemical attack. By the way, France confirms it. Add to that, it looks like the UK and France are going to be joining us in some type of attack. Good. Not to take out Assad, but to actually eliminate his ability to take out, to use chemical weapons.
U.S. has blood and urine samples from the victims of the attack in Syria. They have tested them for positive chemical weapons, and it indicates the Assad regime is responsible.
That is from a third-party aid group. The United States does not have definitive proof, but they feel they have enough to go ahead and start a strike between, sounds like our allies will be the United States, the United Kingdom, and also France.
Only one group outside the Russians has choppers. It is Assad. He used choppers to drop the gas. It was him.
All right. Meanwhile, it is 6:10 on a Friday, the 13th morning, and Jillian joins us with the Fox News Alert.
That's right. We are following some sad news, some breaking news. So let's get right to this Fox News Alert. A Massachusetts police officer shot and killed while serving a warrant. Officer Sean Gannon hit in the head.
Gunshot wound to an officer. Officer down.
Sean was a wonderful, wonderful young man. The sky was the limit for him.
Thomas Latenowicz will be charged with murder. He has more than 100 prior offenses. A caravan of police cars escorting Officer Gannon's body overnight. The 8-year veteran of the force leaves behind a wife. Gannon's canine partner also shot and recovering. Tell my mom I love her. Those heart-wrenching words made in a 911 call by a teen trapped and suffocating in a minivan. 16-year-old Kyle Push pinned under the third-row bench seat after it flipped on top of him. He called 911 twice, but Cincinnati, Ohio police say they couldn't hear his exact location. His father finding his body nearly 6 hours later. Last year, Honda recalled about 800,000 Odyssey vans in the U.S. because of a problem with the seats accidentally tipping forward. A Honda spokesperson, though, says this particular van was not impacted. Days after that FBI raid on President Trump's personal lawyer, a hearing on the search warrant is scheduled in court today. Agents looking for documents at Michael Cohen's home and office, including those related to a payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. According to the Washington Post, agents may have also seized private taped conversations. It's unclear if any of those feature the president. Vice President Mike Pence heading to the Summit of Americas in Peru today. There, he'll promote U.S. trade and press our Latin American partners to further isolate Venezuela. White House senior advisor Ivanka Trump is already there, pushing for women's economic empowerment. President Trump canceled his trip to Peru to focus on the escalating tensions in Syria. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
A lot going on. All right, thank you very much. Meanwhile, coming up, Joy Behar goes atomic.
We have to rely on the sanity of Kim Jong-un and Putin over the president of the United States.
Comparing the president to Kim and Putin, has she finally gone too far? Wait till you hear the blowback.
Meghan McCain, thank goodness she's on that show. Pushback in a great way. Plus, Mike Pompeo making his case to become the new Secretary of State. How did he do? Senator John Barrasso live in studio with one of the lawmakers asking the tough questions.
Hello, Senator. See you.
He'll be in next.
How are
we get any
Senator,
Democrat support?
Nice to see you, too.
This yesterday, Secretary of State nominee Mike Pompeo facing tough questions on day one of his confirmation hearing. So what can we expect on day two? Here with reaction is someone asking some of those questions. Republican Senator and member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, John Barrasso, joins us live in studio.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning to you.
Great to be back.
All right. So what'd you think of his first day?
Well, I thought he was terrific. Clear answers, concise answers, and convincing answers. Anybody looked to him who didn't have a preconceived notion would say this man ought to be Secretary of State of the United States. He has the background and he has the forward view as well.
He also made it pretty clear he's not going to be Donald Trump's yes man.
Well, and he hasn't been as the CIA director for the last year. They have a good working relationship. The chemistry is good between them. There's a respect both ways. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump is the commander-in-chief of our military. Mike Pompeo, with his background and his understanding of the issues, is the right person. I've traveled with him internationally to security conferences. He knows the people, he knows the policies, knows the issues. He's the one to do the job.
Okay, so during the first day of questioning, one question that stuck out was Cory Booker asking the Secretary of State about his feelings about gay marriage, and he said, essentially, these are the same feelings I've had all along regarding traditional marriage. He feels it is wrong, but, you know, he's gotten a lot of coverage. I can't believe he would say that.
Well, and the Secretary of State nominee did talk about human rights and the importance of that internationally. But you've got to realize some of these Democrats are trying to out-liberal each other as they're actually trying to position themselves to run for president.
Which Cory Booker is.
Yeah. And Mike Pompeo, he is the person to do this job. He knows the issues, and we got to get rid of the distractions and focus on really what is hand here. Threats that we face as a nation today, threats ongoing, and threats long term. And in terms of making sure in an America first approach, where we are the strongest, most powerful and respected country in the world, economically, militarily, politically, you need somebody at the head of state. In terms of Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo is the person.
And those are the kind of questions you should ask. But then you get a whole bunch of stuff like this. Watch this.
Do you think Special Counsel Mueller's investigation is a witch hunt?
Do you believe Special Counsel Mueller's investigation is an attack on our country and all we stand for?
I think it'd be really troubling if you couldn't say here today that you don't believe that the Mueller investigation is an attack on America.
Do you think that Muslim Americans in this country who serve in our military, who serve in the State Department, their failure to speak up, are they complicit in terrorist attacks? Do you believe that gay sex is a perversion? Yes or no?
Well, what do you think about that?
Well, it's amazing and you didn't even run the one where somebody said, what do you do if the president gets impeached? Which is what we're seeing the Democrats, I mean, that's their playbook. Go against President Trump.
Right.
The world is a very dangerous place. We have a commander-in-chief. We need to make sure he has the full team in place. He has a national security advisor. He has a new nominee for the head of the CIA.
Right.
He has an incredible Secretary of Defense with General Mattis. We need Mike Pompeo on the job.
Exit question, how do you get to 51 senators? Because John McCain's not going to show up, and Rand Paul says, nope, I can't vote for him.
Well, Rand is very consistent. He said that from the second that Mike Pompeo was announced. I think anybody that listened to the hearings yesterday would be convinced Mike Pompeo is the right person for the job. I think that we will get Democrat votes. He will get confirmed. That's my prediction. I'm standing by it.
And so, you know, we haven't seen the Democrats help you guys out so far.
Well, he is the right person.
You're an optimist.
I am an optimist, but I'm a realist. And that's what we have in Mike Pompeo, somebody who is actually a realist, understands how the real world works, rather than rose-colored glasses, which we see from some of the Democrats right now.
Well, I'm from Kansas. He was my congressman for a long time. Know him to be a credible guy. Would do a good job. Let's see what happens.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, you know that caravan of migrants from Central America finally arriving at the U.S.-Mexican border, and the president may have been right. An MS-13 gang member was caught trying to sneak in. Plus, looks like he'll be sitting in the stands instead of taking a knee. How Colin Kaepernick may have just blown his shot again.
Thanks for you. President Trump reportedly planning to pardon former Vice President Dick Cheney's chief of staff. Scooter Libby was convicted in 2007 for lying to the FBI and obstructing justice over leaking the name of a CIA operative. And victims of Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme are in store for a long-awaited payday. The Justice Department set now to distribute $504 million in forfeited funds to nearly 22,000 victims. It's just a small portion of the $65 billion in investor losses. Madoff is currently serving a 150-year sentence.
Kind of a drop in the bucket, but still it's a drop. Meanwhile, new details on that caravan of immigrants we have been telling you about, determined to enter the United States from Central America. We're now learning that 61 illegals were grabbed at the Arizona border, and apparently at least one linked to the migrant surge.
A member of MS-13, Border Patrol agents say one of them is 18. He's from El Salvador, a member of the MS-13 gang.
Well, here with his reaction is a member of the Tulsa Police Department's gang unit and analyst for A&E's Live PD, Sergeant Sean Larkin. Sergeant, thanks for being with us and what you do for our country. Good morning. What do you think of this? Are MS-13 gang members, we know of at least one sneaking into this caravan, but with your experience, do you think there are more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, anytime you've got a group this large that's working its way to the country, especially from Central America, where we do have a large number of MS-13 gang members, I'm sure there's going to be some that, try to sneak in to get here into the U.S.
Last surge that we had when all those so-called unaccompanied minors came in, that's how they ended up, MS-13 ended up populating most of Long Island. They came in, they seemed to be desperate situations. They had MS-13 and they had their family of gangsters waiting.
Yeah, they're fleeing countries that are plagued by this gang problem, MS-13 there. So they're leaving from one area, coming here, even if they're trying to come here legitimately, maybe to try to find work or whatever it is. When that doesn't work out for them, that's what they're going to, lean towards, is back into that gang life so they can, provide for themselves however means necessary.
How does it work? They are members of MS-13 when they are in Central America. And then what's the recruiting thing go like where they say, hey, come on up to Long Island or come to New York because what?
It's the potential for a better life, but it's also, there's more opportunities here victim-wise. The gangs are established here. As we know, MS-13 is a growing gang here in the United States, so they're able to join forces with some of those here.
Think about the pressure at the border of the cops like you who have to worry about who's coming across, as well as keep their local community safe, knowing that these are going to get caught up in the catch and release system, which has not been stopped yet, and they're going to be ferried throughout Long Island. A lot of Long Island or elsewhere, I understand too, they'll go get jobs. They'll work during the day, earn some money, send it back, and then continue their gang behavior.
That's something that, from my experience dealing with gangs, I've been a police officer 21 years now, and something that is very different with our Hispanic gangs potentially, gangs like MS-13, Serranos, things like that. A lot of these guys, that's exactly it. They have regular jobs during the daytime to send money back to family, to other organizations back where they originated from, and then also, have this gang member. It's almost like a double life at times.
In your experience, as far as recruitment, to kind of piggyback on Steve's question, why would you ever want to be a part of this group? I mean, Brian did a story, there's two moms that were at the State of the Union address with the president. They lost their daughters, and those girls were unrecognizable. What these guys did to them is something that is just unfathomable. How can a human being do that to someone else?
It is, and that's why MS-13 really stands out. They're not any larger than other established gangs we already have here in the United States, but it's the brutality that they do these type of things. Right. It's personal. When you're using knives, machetes, hammers, these are all incidents that have happened here. That's very personal. It's so different from our other street gangs.
Well, the good news is we stopped at least one at the border.
Correct.
But the bad news is we don't know how many got through.
That is true, yes.
All right. Sergeant Sean Larkin from the Tulsa Police Department, and you know him from Annie's wildly successful show that's on all the time, Live PD. Thank you very much.
And you do a lot of gang stuff on the weekends. You'll be able to identify some of this criminal activity and say, well, this is gang related because you have your gang background.
Yes, sir.
If you're not in a gang, you arrested them.
No, that is not the case, definitely.
You be careful out there. Thank you.
All right, 28 minutes after the hour, still ahead. Two brothers from Ohio admit they were sending thousands overseas to fund terror. And that's not even the worst part about this story. We'll explain.
And Joy Behar goes nuclear. Listen.
We have to rely on the sanity of Kim Jong-un and Putin over the president of the United States.
Liberal turned conservative Candace Owens is here to react to that. Coming up next.
I said it's too late to apologize. It's too late. I said it's too late to apologize.
And this is my time.
Yeah, this is my town.
Well, if you open up your local newspaper today, you might be getting an AP story on Fox and Friends by David Bowder. He was able to spend a couple of days with us. We actually had lunch with him. Really excellent reporter.
And Brian paid, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
I'm in the reimbursement process. I did, exactly.
So here is and you can see that according to the Associated Press, Fox and Friends is the most influential news show on the air. And if we could back the teleprompter up just a bit, let me read the first sentence. It is the epicenter of television journalism. And then it goes on to say what I just said. David, thank you very much.
David, thank you.
Good article.
Yeah, good article.
Very nicely
but
done.
thank you at home for making us the most influential cable news show. We are so grateful that you choose us every morning.
And we're getting this attention, but keep in mind, we're pretty much doing the same show we've been doing for over 20 years.
Right, but according to the stats, and these are the stats you like to memorize, we're up 40% since 2016.
Okay.
So
I like that.
Yeah, and if we even delayed on the West Coast, how much more we could be. But we're not going to do that because Hemorrhage is full-time now, along with Sandra Smith.
Well, one of the reasons we've got higher ratings, so we've got a lot to talk about, and we've got some great guests. Say hello and good morning to Candace Owens. She is the Director of Urban Engagement for Turning Point USA. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Glad to be back on the couch.
All right, did you see Joy Behar yesterday talking about the president and some dictators? Watch this.
We've gotten to the point in this world now where we have to rely on the sanity of Kim Jong-un and Putin over the president of the United States.
My issue is the moral relativism between someone like Kim Jong-un and Putin and President Trump. I think it's easy to sort of sit here and say that, but the reason why the Syrian...
You think Kim Jong-un is less moral than Trump? Do you?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I think Putin, the aiding and abetting of Assad right now.
On what topic?
You think that Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, and Bashar al-Assad and President Trump are the exact same thing? It's when you lose all arguments with me in every way.
What I'm saying is that I see that the two of them are backing off of war, and I see Trump provoking war.
Provoking war by taking 2 weeks and not responding immediately?
Candace, these two dictators kill their own people. How can she compare them to our president? She might not like our president,
correct,
but he doesn't do that.
Correct. I mean, look, it's a total and utter departure from reality, which we see often on the left. That's what it comes down to. But Joy Behar, I mean, she really has over time become unhinged with this unhealthy obsession to correlate Trump to these, as you mentioned, dictators and people that have murdered people within their own countries. And I don't understand it, but I don't know. I feel like it's almost time to stage an intervention over there.
But why does it take Meghan McCain to bring some sanity to that panel? I get the sense that everybody basically agrees with her.
Right, because what we're looking at over there is it's the extreme left. I mean, that's what we're seeing that's starting to take shape. They actually believe the things that they're saying, and what it really is, it's just an unhealthy obsession with Donald Trump, and there's nobody that is more unhealthy and more obsessed with Donald Trump than Joy Behar.
Yeah, what is it, 4-1 over there?
Yeah.
Conservative, right. Conservative versus liberals. Meanwhile, you are with Turning Point USA.
I am.
It's interesting. There's been a consortium of students out at Penn State who have demanded that Penn State stop funding groups like Turning Point USA on campus and also the Bull Moose Party because they say that your group attracts white nationalists to campus.
That is correct. And it's not just Penn State. We're battling this on other campuses as well. I just went 2 days ago to Colorado State University to approach these students. They can call themselves Students Against White Supremacy, and they're trying to get Turning Point removed. And you wouldn't believe it. There are these white liberals shouting in my face, extremely confrontational, essentially telling me that if I don't see myself as less than and as a victim, then I am perpetuating white supremacy. So it's quite ironic.
So this is not a debate that they want to engage in.
No,
they just want to scream.
They want to scream, and I'm telling you, I felt really unsafe.
They think you are a white supremacist.
She gave a quote to the Collegian and said that even Candace Owens, you know, she perpetuates white supremacy.
Right, so tell folks at home who aren't familiar with what Turning Point USA is or the Bull Moose Party. And tell us your story, because you grew up in a Democratic family.
Correct. I grew up in a liberal family. My family, they're still, you know, a lot of them are still liberals. And really what it comes down to is I asked her to identify what white supremacy meant to her, and she said it was capitalism and free markets. And that's what Turning Point is all about. Yeah, capitalism and free markets. We got it all on camera. It was pretty unbelievable.
So tell us about your organization.
Yeah, so that's what we do. We go on campus and we teach conservative values because, as you see, it's really missing. And these liberal campuses have become islands of totalitarianism, and they're teaching socialism and communism.
And that's the thing. That's where it comes from?
Dialogue.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. Absolutely. And the teachers and the professors, they're backing this up. So we try to insert a different, you know, different conversation. We talk about free markets and capitalism. We're pro-American, go figure.
Right.
And that's not acceptable anymore on college campuses.
Penn State's administration said, we don't know what you're talking about because Penn State doesn't give any money to your group, nor the other one as well. So
right. And then the other thing to keep in mind, too, is everyone's picking colleges right now for their kids. You get no one can say the size of the campus, the travel, the dorm size. You have to ask, are they open to all views? Are there going to be protest and safe spaces?
Exactly. And unfortunately, the answer overwhelmingly is no, they're not open to conservative views. It really is a scary thing, and parents need to be extremely involved when picking the colleges for their
You said you got
children.
it on camera. Where can we see it?
Oh, on YouTube, on my Facebook page. We're throwing it up today. It's really scary stuff to see what these students believe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Candace. All right, Jillian's right over there, Candace, and she has has some headlines for us.
That's right. Good Friday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. We do have some serious news. A cop killer's freedom put on hold for now. Today, the widow of an officer killed at the hands of Herman Bell will speak to a New York court, hoping to keep him behind bars for good. She says a parole board failed to follow procedural and executive law when ordering Bell's release in February. Diane Piagentini spoke here on Fox and Friends last month with this message.
Kill a police officer, you don't get let out of jail. You're in there for life.
Her husband, Joe Piagentini, and Waverly Jones were murdered by Bell and 2 others in 1971. 2 brothers now admit to providing thousands of dollars to terrorist Anwar al-Awlaki. Sultan and Asif Salim pleading guilty in an Ohio courtroom to concealing $17,000 to finance al-Awlaki, who they knew was planning the attacks. They face up to 8 years in prison. Al-Awlaki, a key al-Qaeda leader, was killed in a U.S. drone strike in 2011. At least one NFL team is standing up to national anthem kneelers. The Seattle Seahawks postponing a workout with disgraced quarterback Colin Kaepernick after reportedly refusing to end his protests. NFL.com reporter Ian Rappaport tweeting that Kaepernick did not have a plan on dealing with, quote, everything moving forward. The former 49er has been unemployed since the 2016 season. See what happens there. So look at your headlines.
Yeah, I was watching Stephen A. Smith, and he was saying that he's convinced that Kaepernick wants to be more of an activist than a quarterback now. So that's clearly, if all he has to do is say, I'll stand for the national anthem, he would have got a shot with the Seahawks.
Well, that's how he's gotten famous, really famous. Thank you very much, Jillian. Now it's time for Janice, who's got some big news about some crazy weather.
I do, but first of all, look at that forecast here in New York City, close to 80 degrees today and tomorrow. I think we're going to hit 80. On the bad side of this, we still have winter across the northern plains and the west coast. See where the temperatures are very cold, see where the temperatures are warm. That's where we're going to have the potential for not only a snowstorm, but large hail, damaging winds, even tornadoes. So there's the past 24 hours. You see that snowstorm developing and the threat for blizzard conditions across portions of the northern plains and the Midwest. We have blizzard warnings up in effect for these areas where we could potentially see 6 to 12, even 18 inches of snow, my friends. An April snowstorm, yes. And then the threat for tornadoes today and tomorrow from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Midwest. Large hail, damaging winds, isolated tornadoes as well. So a lot going on this weekend. We've got the snow, we've got the severe weather, and then we have 79 degrees here in New York City.
Like that part.
Thank you.
Your Friday the
Janice.
13th Foxcast.
No!
Thanks, JD. All right, meanwhile, straight ahead, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg in the hot seat over his company's data gathering practices. But what about Google, which is bigger than Facebook? We're going to talk to Kurt the Cyber Guy if they're the next target of personal data concerns.
Yeah, I'm going to search out Kurt. And President Trump is getting a new ride. An exclusive look at the new fleet of high-tech limos that will protect the president, much to Joy Behar's upsetness.
That looks like a car from Dumb and Dumber 2. Remember the dog?
I didn't know they had a sequel.
Yep.
All right, quick headlines now. Please jot these down. A dangerous E. coli outbreak is spreading across the U.S., landing 6 people in a hospital. 17 people across 7 states have been reported getting sick from this bacteria. CDC officials have not yet determined the source of the outbreak. And it turns out the water in Chicago could kill you. The Chicago Tribune finding that nearly 70% of homes tested in the city have drinking water loaded with lead. The study blaming the use of lead water lines until they were banned by Congress in 1986. All right, time for Poland Spring to get there.
Facebook chief Mark Zuckerberg in the hot seat this week about his company's data gathering practices. But what about Google, and could they be the next company under scrutiny?
Kurt the Cyber Guy joins us right now. Google is everywhere, and it's actually bigger than Facebook.
It's huge. It's the largest tech company, especially when it comes to our personal data. So if you think Mark Zuckerberg just went for a bad ride at the Senate, which he didn't, by the way, that was a giant commercial for Facebook. What Google may be going through next is where the focus is going. So Google right now, if you think about it, if you don't have an Apple, what do you have? You have an Android phone. That's Google. And many people don't correlate the fact that they have about 33 products that are constantly taking in our data.
So what do they know about us?
They know incredible amounts. So much that, I mean, I could only fit so many words on the screen.
Okay.
And they go way beyond that. They know your name. They know your employer. They know your home address. They know your work address. They know your birth date. They know all your mobile numbers, your home number, your recent Google searches.
That's a problem.
Every single place you have ever gone.
That's the problem.
That
Really?
it went with you. Yes, they've
What do you
got
mean by that? Like, so if I travel
location
and I go on a
history,
Google search?
right? Location history. Use Google Maps. They keep track of exactly where you went, when
where
you
your
went.
phone went.
That's scary.
But that's you.
That's always you.
So we all go everywhere with their phone. And they, if you use Google Assistant, you know, that's like the Siri or the Alexa of Google. They keep track of those voice recordings
What do
and
they use
messages.
that information? What are they using it for?
Well, you know, there's a really good side of this, which is it brings about convenience for us. So it predicts what we may want to do next. So if I ask for weather at a certain time of the day, then it'll know, hey, Kurt's probably going to ask for weather around this time. On the other hand, they use the information just like Facebook did, except they didn't abuse it as of this moment. So they use that information to offer it to advertisers so that they say, you know what, Kurt's going to ask for weather right now. You may want to sell him an umbrella. So that kind of activity.
Things pop up. Yeah, Kurt, here's the thing. If there's no reason, the thing that prompted this was Cambridge Analytica. That's that whole controversy got Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress. So where's the controversy to bring Google forward? Or are we just going to have a tell me what you do type of congressional hearing, do you think?
Google's equally responsible. In 2016, they were also they're also responsible for having their own data manipulated. And they also promoted a lot of misinformation across their service. We've got to keep our eyes
consciously.
Not consciously. Nobody, you know, but at this point, who can you believe from these tech companies in Silicon Valley?
Because it's an algorithm that figures out what they
But not only
serve
that,
you
they're
up.
not even telling us when they find out. They're telling us months and months and sometimes years
Because
after
there's no
the fact.
regulation.
There's none. There's no regulation. And anyway, here's what you want to do today. This is wild. You can go on and see, and Google, to their credit, made this very easy. You can find out exactly how you're being tracked online. You simply go to their settings. They have a thing called a privacy checkup. If you go to CyberGuy, I'll take you there.
CyberGuy.com.
Yeah, and then if you also go, you can download every single thing Google knows about you. It takes a while, so they work on it and they email you when the link is ready. It is like a phone book. It is crazy.
I got to look that up.
It is crazy.
So if you really want to get to know Kurt, let's look him up.
Yeah,
right?
I'll hand you my phone book of Google's information.
All right.
There you go.
Kurt,
Great to
thank
see
you very much. It's
Great
an
weekend.
eye-opener. All right. Meanwhile, it is 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Coming up, President Trump deliberating over whether to strike Syria in response to its chemical attacks. When can we expect a decision? And everything else, we're going to talk to Kellyanne Conway. She's going to be with us about half an hour.
And a former NFL star, Herschel Walker, first announced that he was giving away a truck to an American hero right here on our show. Watch this.
We're going to give away to active military, veterans, and first responders because they don't really get enough, I think, enough reward.
Well, now he is here live with the winner next.
I'm not gonna stand here and wait. I'll hold on to the wings of the eagles. Watch as we go fly.
What we're trying to do is give away this wonderful truck. It was hand painted by Tex McDermott, and we're going to give away to active military, veterans, and first responders because they don't really get enough, I think, enough rewards. I think they've been criticized so much for all the good things that they're doing, so I wanted to give away a truck.
And that's where we were standing in November, and here we are in April with the former NFL star Herschel Walker of Georgia, Heisman Trophy winner, Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Viking. Welcome back, Herschel.
Hey, thank you.
You remember that moment? You were a lot younger then. You were trying to give away this truck to a worthy veteran, and there were so many great applicants that saw that. A lot of people saw it, and they wrote in and said, I want to nominate my veteran to win this truck.
Yes, and you know what was so great about it is we had 7 judges that read over 5,000 entries, and I tell you what, when we saw Brian's story, tell you what, he's an absolutely amazing guy. We talk about a great American hero, and that's who it is right there.
All right, Brian, you had an old boss watch us, Brian Jason, and he's watching this. Watch Herschel describe the type of applicant. He wrote a letter for you recommending you. Who was that guy? What did he say?
Well, yeah, an old boss of mine. He was very general. He didn't know the details. And when I got the phone call that said I was a finalist, I go, he doesn't even know much of my story, so he couldn't put a lot of details on there. But
you served in the military. You had three terms.
Yeah, I was on the SEAL
three
team.
tours.
Served in the SEAL teams for about 8 years. Did 3 tours. I didn't count, but I did somewhere around 300 missions. Standing here today, any one of my teammates could be standing right here. They're all deserving.
But why is Brian standing here?
The reason he's standing here because we talk about a great American hero, and he's just symbol of that. I said it many times. I ran a football, but guys that give up their lives, their family, and everything else for someone else, they're the one that deserves stuff like this. And that's why I want to thank Rocky Ridge and you guys, because they saw you guys' story, and that's what we got to do is for first responders and people like this. That's what is worthy.
Brian, I can see you in this truck. I mean, this is extremely nice. Are you a pickup type of guy?
Never had a pickup before, but I will be now. I fell in love with this thing in the last 4 weeks since I knew I won. So it's been an honor. I just hope I can represent it well. There's 5,000 applicants, and every last one of those are heroes. Every last one of those are deserving. So I just hope to represent them in the best that I can.
And Herschel, I know how much you care about veterans. Spend a lot of your time for veterans. So this is a perfect mix for you. But Brian, as we have 2,000 troops in the Syria area, we have a few thousand in Iraq, we got a couple of thousand in Afghanistan. What are your thoughts right now to the men and women who are deployed, knowing that their lives are on the line every day?
I'll pray for them. They're serving their country at a very high level. They're putting themselves on the line. I respect everything that they do. Being an old prior veteran, I still go and thank veterans every day, so I thank them all for their service.
And Herschel, real quick, yesterday, reportedly the Seattle Seahawks were prepared to make Colin Kaepernick an offer to be a backup quarterback for their team, and he says, I'm not going to stand for the national anthem, reportedly. So they say it reportedly. They're not interested. What's your reaction? If he doesn't stand for the national anthem, you think he should still get a job?
My thing is it got nothing to do with standing and kneeling. First, you have to be worthy for the job. And if you get the job, you got to do what they ask you to do. That's your job. You got to stand. If they want you to stand, if you're not going to stand, you're not getting a job. And I think that's one thing that Brian said, and you mentioned it. We got people that are fighting for this country today. And we have people in this country now that think they have the privileges that they always want to say, and that's not right.
Right. Brian, thanks so much for your service. Rocky Ridge, great job. And Herschel Walker, fantastic. Great seeing you. More Fox and Friends in just a moment.